Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the cold metal bars of her prison cell, watching the alien guards patrol the corridor beyond. The Kythera had captured her during what was supposed to be a routine diplomatic mission to their homeworld. 3 months ago, she had been representing Earth's first official contact with this fierce warrior species. Now she was their prisoner, held in the depths of their capital city's detention complex. The Kythera resembled massive wolves that had learned to walk upright. Their fur ranged from silver to deep black, and their yellow eyes held an intelligence that was both fascinating and terrifying. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with powerful muscles rippling beneath their thick coats. Their society was built around pack loyalty and hunting prowess, concepts that Sarah was beginning to understand better than she ever wanted to. "Human," growled a voice from the shadows. Sarah turned to see Warden Thack approaching her cell. His dark gray fur was marked with ritual scars that indicated his high rank within the pack hierarchy. "You have visitors," Sarah's heart raced. Had Earth finally sent a rescue mission? She followed Thax through winding corridors carved from native stone, past cells holding other prisoners from various alien species. The detention complex was vast, built into the mountain that served as the foundation for the Kythera capital city. They entered a large chamber lit by bioluminescent panels that cast an eerie blue glow across the walls. In the center of the room, 3 small figures huddled together on a raised platform. Sarah's breath caught in her throat when she realized what she was looking at. 3 Kythera cubs, no older than human children of perhaps 6 or 7 years. Their fur was still soft and downy, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. They looked malnourished and scared, trembling as they pressed against each other for comfort. "These are the offspring of traitors," Thax explained, his voice carrying the weight of pack justice. Their parents collaborated with the Xerian Empire, providing intelligence that led to the death of many warriors. "According to our laws, the sins of the parents must be paid by their bloodline." Sarah felt sick to her stomach. "What are you going to do with them?" "They are to be executed at dawn," Thax said matter-of-factly. "However, the Pack Council has decided to offer you a choice. These cubs will be placed in your care until the execution. You may try to keep them alive, fed, and comfortable during their final hours. In return, when they die, you will also face execution alongside them." The chamber fell silent except for the soft whimpering of the cubs. Sarah stared at the 3 small beings, seeing the terror in their young eyes. They couldn't understand why they were being punished for their parents' crimes. They only knew they were alone, hungry, and afraid. "Or," Thax continued, "you may refuse this burden. You will remain in your cell and the cubs will face their fate alone. Your own execution will be delayed until the next full moon ceremony, giving your people more time to negotiate for your release." Sarah's mind raced. The logical choice was obvious. She could live a few more weeks, possibly long enough for Earth to secure her freedom. These cubs weren't her responsibility. Their fate was sealed by crimes she had no part in. But as she looked at their faces, she saw something that transcended species. These were children. Innocent children who were going to die because of adult politics and ancient laws they couldn't comprehend. "I'll take them," Sarah said quietly. Thax's ears twitched in what might have been surprise. "You understand that you are choosing death? There is no honor in dying alongside traitor spawn. Your sacrifice will earn you no glory in our culture." "I don't care about glory," Sarah replied, stepping toward the platform. "They're just children." The cubs shrank back as she approached, their natural instincts warning them away from the alien predator. Sarah moved slowly, crouching down to make herself less threatening. She had studied Kythera behavior during her diplomatic training, learning that their young responded to certain calming gestures. She lowered her head slightly and made a soft humming sound, a noise she had observed Kythera mothers using to comfort their offspring. The cubs' ears perked up slightly, though they remained pressed together in their defensive huddle. Thax watched this interaction with calculating eyes. "Very well, human. They are your responsibility now. You will be given basic food rations for yourself and the cubs. Guard shifts will monitor you constantly. Any attempt to escape or harm the cubs will result in immediate execution for all of you." 2 guards entered the chamber carrying restraint collars. They fastened one around Sarah's neck and smaller versions around each cub. The devices would track their movements and deliver painful shocks if they strayed too far from their designated area. Sarah was led to a larger cell, one that had obviously been prepared for this arrangement. It contained basic sleeping pallets, a water dispenser, and a food distribution unit that would provide measured rations. The space was larger than her previous cell, but still clearly a prison. As the guards departed and the heavy door sealed shut, Sarah found herself alone with 3 terrified alien children who were scheduled to die in less than 12 hours. The cubs remained huddled together in the far corner, watching her with suspicious eyes. Sarah sat down across from them, making no aggressive moves. She had read that Kithera cubs were naturally curious but would only approach if they felt safe. "My name is Sarah," she said softly, using the few words of Kithera language she had learned. "I'm going to try to help you." The smallest cub, a female with silver-white fur, tilted her head slightly. Her stomach growled audibly, and Sarah realized they probably hadn't been fed in some time. Sarah activated the food dispenser, which produced several nutrient bars designed for Kithera physiology. She placed them on the floor between herself and the cubs, then retreated to give them space. After several minutes of cautious observation, hunger overcame fear. The cubs crept forward and quickly devoured the food, their eyes never leaving Sarah's face. As they ate, Sarah began to formulate a plan. She had perhaps 10 hours until dawn. 10 hours to figure out how to save 3 innocent lives. The task seemed impossible, but Sarah had not survived years of military service and diplomatic training by accepting impossible odds. She studied the cell's construction, the guard rotation patterns she could observe through the small window, and most importantly, she watched the cubs. Understanding them might be the key to their survival. The silver cub finished eating first and surprised Sarah by taking a tentative step toward her. Their eyes met, and Sarah saw something that gave her hope: intelligence. These children could learn, could adapt, could potentially be taught to survive. Dawn was coming, but Sarah Chen was not going to let it bring death. Not if she could help it. Sarah spent the next several hours observing everything she could about her prison and the cubs. The guards changed every 4 hours, following predictable routes through the corridor. The cell's walls were carved from solid rock, but the door mechanism was electronic, controlled by biometric scanners that read Kithera paw prints. The cubs had gradually moved closer to her, drawn by warmth and the promise of food. The silver female seemed to be the boldest, while her 2 brothers remained more cautious. Sarah had started calling them Luna, Frost, and Shadow based on their fur colors, though she knew they had real names she couldn't pronounce. 6 hours before dawn, Sarah made her first real breakthrough. Luna had fallen asleep curled against Sarah's leg, her small body radiating trust that broke Sarah's heart. She knew that Kithera cubs bonded quickly with caregivers as a survival mechanism. In the wild, a cub without pack protection was doomed. As she gently stroked Luna's soft fur, Sarah noticed something interesting. The cub's breathing had synchronized with her own, and her body temperature had risen slightly. During her diplomatic training, Sarah had learned that Kithera young could enter a state called deep pack bond with trusted adults during times of extreme stress. It was a biological response that helped cubs survive harsh conditions by sharing body heat and slowing their metabolism. An idea began forming in Sarah's mind. It was desperate and dangerous, but it might be their only chance. Sarah carefully moved Luna to a sleeping pallet and approached the cell door. She had noticed that the guard rotation included a brief gap when both sentries would be at the far end of the corridor, checking other prisoners. That gap lasted exactly 90 seconds. Using the metal edge of her food tray, Sarah began working on the electronic lock's housing. Her military engineering background had taught her that most security systems had manual overrides for emergencies. The trick was finding them without triggering alarms. After 2 hours of careful work, she located a small access panel behind the main lock. Inside were backup power connections and what appeared to be a manual release mechanism. But operating it would require precise timing and a distraction. Sarah returned to the cubs, who had all fallen into the deep pack bond sleep state. Their breathing was slow and steady, their body temperatures lowered to conserve energy. In this state, they could survive much longer without food or water. 4 hours before dawn, Sarah put her plan into motion. She activated the food dispenser repeatedly, causing it to malfunction and emit loud warning beeps. The guards would have to investigate, giving her the distraction she needed. As heavy footsteps approached the cell, Sarah positioned herself by the door. "The food unit is broken," she called out in Kithera. The cubs need nutrition or they'll die before execution. Guard Captain Vex appeared at the door, his battle-scarred face showing irritation. The machine is functioning properly, human. You have exceeded your ration allowance. Look at them, Sarah insisted, gesturing to the cubs who appeared unconscious on their pallets. They're entering survival hibernation. If they die now, your pack council won't get their ceremonial execution. Vex's eyes narrowed as he studied the cubs. Sarah was counting on his unfamiliarity with human behavior. While he understood cub biology, he wouldn't know that Sarah was capable of inducing the pack bond state through careful manipulation of environment and pheromones. I will examine the cubs, Vex decided, entering the cell with one subordinate while leaving another on guard outside. This was Sarah's moment. As Vex bent over Luna to check her vital signs, Sarah struck. Her military hand-to-hand training kicked in as she disabled the guard inside the cell and grabbed his weapon. In the same motion, she activated the manual door release she had prepared. The cell door slammed shut, trapping Vex inside while Sarah and the cubs were freed into the corridor. The guard outside reached for his alarm trigger, but Sarah was faster. She stunned him with the captured weapon and quickly dragged his unconscious body into an alcove. "Wake up," Sarah whispered urgently to the cubs in their language. "We need to run." The cubs emerged from their hibernation state with remarkable speed, their survival instincts fully activated. They understood that Sarah was now their pack leader, and they would follow her anywhere. Sarah led them through corridors she had memorized from her arrival weeks earlier. The detention complex was vast, but she remembered the route to the vehicle bays where prisoner transport ships were kept. If she could reach one of those ships, they might have a chance. Behind them, alarms began blaring as other guards discovered the escape. Heavy footsteps echoed through the stone corridors as search teams mobilized. The cubs moved with surprising stealth for their age, their natural hunting instincts guiding them to avoid detection. They reached a maintenance shaft that Sarah had noticed during her arrival. It was too small for adult Cathara, but perfect for a human and 3 cubs. They crawled through dusty ventilation passages, following air currents toward what Sarah hoped was the surface. The shaft opened into a storage area filled with equipment and supplies. Sarah quickly gathered portable food, water, and basic survival gear. She also found something unexpected: communication equipment that could potentially reach Earth ships in the outer system. As she programmed a distress signal, the cubs stood guard with remarkable discipline. Luna positioned herself by the door while Frost and Shadow watched other approaches. Their behavior reminded Sarah that despite their youth, these were the children of a warrior species. The signal transmitted successfully, but Sarah knew it would take hours for any response. They needed to stay hidden until help arrived, assuming help was coming at all. An explosion rocked the facility as Cathara security forces began using heavy weapons to search areas where the escapees might be hiding. Sarah realized they had perhaps minutes before this storage area was discovered. She made a decision that went against every survival instinct she possessed. Instead of running further, Sarah led the cubs toward the facility's main armory. If they were going to make a stand, she wanted weapons. The armory was lightly guarded, with most security forces diverted to the search operation. Sarah approached the guards with the cubs hiding behind her, counting on the element of surprise. "I surrender," she called out, raising her hands as she walked into view. The guards relaxed slightly, expecting an easy capture. That moment of lowered vigilance was all Sarah needed. She dove aside as the cubs attacked with perfectly coordinated precision, using their natural pack hunting instincts to overwhelm opponents much larger than themselves. Within seconds, Sarah had access to the armory's weapon systems. She armed herself with a Cathara plasma rifle and gathered additional equipment for the cubs, small weapons that they could handle, along with protective gear sized for their young bodies. "Now we're not running anymore," Sarah told them. "Now we fight back." The cubs' eyes gleamed with understanding. They were no longer helpless victims awaiting execution. They were hunters, and Sarah had just taught them that even the strongest predators could be overcome with intelligence, courage, and pack coordination. As security forces closed in on their position, Sarah prepared to show the Cathara exactly what humans were capable of when protecting those they considered family. The armory became Sarah's fortress as dozens of Cathara warriors surrounded the building. Through the reinforced windows, she could see pack leader Gorthak himself leading the assault force. His massive frame and ornate battle armor marked him as one of the most feared warriors in their society. Human, Gorthak's voice boomed through external speakers. You have made this situation much worse for yourself. Return the cubs unharmed and your death will be swift. Sarah checked her weapon's power levels while the cubs positioned themselves at strategic points around the armory. They had adapted to human military tactics with frightening speed, demonstrating the intelligence that made their species such formidable opponents. Counteroffer, Sarah replied through the armory's communication system. Let me speak to your pack council. I have information they need to hear. The time for words has passed, Gorthak growled. You will surrender now or we will take the armory by force, Sarah smiled grimly. She had spent weeks studying Kythera military doctrine during her captivity. They were excellent hunters and fierce individual warriors, but their tactics relied heavily on overwhelming force and intimidation. They had never faced an opponent who understood their weaknesses. The first assault came exactly as Sarah predicted. Gorthak sent warriors through the main entrance while others attempted to breach the rear walls. The Cathara expected their enemies to panic and make mistakes under pressure. Instead, they encountered a perfectly coordinated defense. Sarah had programmed the armory's automated systems to create crossfire zones that channeled attackers into kill corridors. The cubs used their natural agility to move through ventilation shafts, attacking from unexpected angles before disappearing again. Luna proved especially deadly, using her small size to crawl through spaces that adult Kythera couldn't follow. She disabled several warriors with precisely placed shots to their armor's weak points, knowledge she couldn't possibly have learned on her own. Sarah realized the cubs were accessing inherited memories, genetic knowledge passed down through generations of Kythera hunters. They knew instinctively how to fight, how to kill, and how to survive. Sarah had simply given them the tools and confidence to use those abilities. The first wave of attackers withdrew, after losing 6 warriors without inflicting any casualties on the defenders. Gorthak's angry roar echoed across the complex, as he realized he was facing opponents who understood warfare as well as he did. Frost. Shadow, maintain overwatch positions, Sarah ordered. Using military terminology the cubs somehow understood. Luna, check our ammunition supplies. The cubs responded with professional efficiency that would have impressed human special forces operators. They moved with purpose and coordination, treating Sarah as their pack alpha and themselves as experienced soldiers. The second assault utilized heavy weapons and explosive charges. Kythera engineers attempted to breach the armory's outer walls while snipers provided covering fire. It was a more sophisticated approach, but Sarah had anticipated this escalation. She activated the armory's emergency lockdown protocols, sealing all entrances with blast-resistant barriers. The building's defensive systems included automated turrets that could engage multiple targets simultaneously. More importantly, Sarah had discovered something interesting in the armory's computer systems. Communication logs showing contact between Kythera military units and ships from several different alien species. The cubs' parents hadn't been traitors working for the Xerion Empire. They had been investigating corruption within their own military leadership. Gorthak, Sarah transmitted on an open frequency that all Kythera forces could monitor. I know why you really want these cubs dead. They're not the children of traitors. They're the children of investigators who discovered your illegal weapons trafficking. Silence fell over the battlefield. Sarah could see confusion rippling through the assault forces as warriors began questioning orders they had accepted without thought. The cubs' parents uncovered evidence that you and several other pack leaders have been selling military equipment to enemy species, Sarah continued. They were murdered to keep them quiet, and their children were condemned to eliminate any remaining bloodline that might seek justice. Gorthak's response came in the form of a massive explosion that rocked the armory's foundations. He was trying to silence Sarah before more damaging information could be revealed, but the damage was already done. Sarah could see groups of warriors stepping away from the assault formation, their loyalty shaken by revelations that challenged everything they believed about honor and pack loyalty. Luna appeared at Sarah's side, carrying a data storage device she had retrieved from the armory's intelligence archives. The small cub had somehow accessed secure files that contained the evidence Sarah needed. Smart girl, Sarah murmured, uploading the files to the communication system. Within minutes, detailed records of illegal weapons sales were being broadcast across the entire Kythera military network. The cubs' parents had been thorough investigators. They had documented years of corruption, identifying not just Gorthak, but an entire network of compromised leaders who had been betraying their own species for profit. Outside the armory, the assault force was disintegrating as warriors chose sides. Some remained loyal to Gorthak out of fear or personal obligation. Others began questioning orders and demanding explanations from their commanders. A new voice cut through the chaos on the communication channels. "This is Pack Leader Scythrak of the Mountain Clan. All forces stand down immediately. I am invoking the right of pack challenge." Sarah's heart leaped with hope. Scythrak was mentioned in the Cubs' parents' files as a leader they had trusted, someone who might listen to reason. The right of pack challenge was an ancient Cathera tradition that allowed any warrior to demand formal combat against corrupt leadership. It couldn't be refused without loss of honor, and all other conflicts had to cease until the challenge was resolved. Gorthak's voice dripped with rage as he responded. "I accept your challenge, Scythrak. But first the human and the traitor spawn must die." "Negative," Scythrak replied firmly. "The Cubs are under my protection until this matter is resolved. Any warrior who attacks them will face my personal retribution." The standoff had become a three-way conflict, with Gorthak's loyalists facing both Sarah's improvised fortress and Scythrak's honor guard. The Cubs seemed to understand the political implications better than Sarah expected. Their ears perked with interest as they monitored the various communication channels. Shadow suddenly growled softly, pointing toward a section of wall that appeared undamaged. His enhanced senses had detected something Sarah's human perception missed. Seconds later, that wall exploded inward as Gorthak himself burst through in powered assault armor. The massive Kythera leader moved with terrifying speed, his weapon systems targeting Sarah while his massive claws extended for close combat. Sarah dove aside as plasma bolts scorched the air where she had been standing. She rolled behind a weapons rack and returned fire, but her shots barely scratched Gorthak's advanced armor. The Cubs reacted with perfect coordination, implementing a hunting pattern they seemed to know instinctively. They spread out to attack from multiple angles, using their small size and speed to avoid Gorthak's heavy weapons while targeting his armor's joint connections. For several minutes, the armory became a deadly dance as four beings fought one massive opponent in powered armor. Sarah provided covering fire while the Cubs used hit-and-run tactics that gradually wore down Gorthak's defenses. Luna made the decisive strike, crawling through a damaged wall section to attack Gorthak from behind. Her small weapon found the exact spot where his armor's power coupling connected to the main system. Gorthak's armor shut down completely, leaving him vulnerable for the first time in the battle. He turned toward Luna with murderous intent, his massive claws extended to crush the small cub who had defeated his technology. Sarah's rifle bolt took him center mass, dropping him to the armory floor where he lay motionless. In the sudden silence that followed, Sarah realized that three terrified Cubs had just helped her defeat one of the most feared warriors in Cathera space. They weren't victims anymore. They were soldiers, trained by necessity and guided by instincts that made them incredibly dangerous opponents. Outside the armory, Scythrak's forces were securing the area and arresting Gorthak's remaining loyalists. The Cubs' parents had been vindicated, and their children were finally safe. But Sarah looked at Luna, Frost, and Shadow, and realized something that would change everything. These Cubs had learned to fight from her. They had learned to question authority, to use intelligence over brute force, and to protect those they considered family. They had learned to think like humans. 3 weeks after the armory battle, Sarah found herself in an unprecedented position. Pack leader Scythrak had not only cleared the Cubs of all charges, but had also appointed Sarah as their official guardian. The Cathera Council, faced with overwhelming evidence of corruption, had agreed to an arrangement that had never existed in their history, a human raising Cathera young. Sarah's living quarters in the Mountain Clan stronghold were spacious and comfortable, but she could see the tension her presence created among the adult Cathera. They respected her for exposing Gorthak's corruption and protecting the Cubs, but they struggled to understand how a human could be trusted with their children's development. Luna, Frost, and Shadow had grown remarkably during their time with Sarah. Their bodies were stronger, their reflexes sharper, and their minds more tactical than any Cubs their age had a right to be. Sarah had introduced them to human concepts of strategy, technology, and problem-solving that enhanced their natural Cathera abilities. Sarah, pack leader, Luna said one morning, using the title they had created for her. Other cubs fear us now. Sarah looked up from the tactical manual she had been studying. She was learning Cathera military doctrine not just for her own survival, but to better understand how to guide the cubs' development. Why do they fear you? Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Frost padded over to join the conversation. We think differently. We see patterns they cannot see. Yesterday during hunt training, we tracked prey using methods the instructors had never considered. Shadow, the quietest of the three, spoke from his position by the window where he maintained constant surveillance of their surroundings. They whisper that we are contaminated by human thinking. Some say we are no longer true Cathara. Sarah felt a pang of guilt. She had saved these cubs' lives, but in doing so, she had changed them fundamentally. They thought like hybrid beings now, combining Cathara instincts with human analytical skills. The result was formidable, but it also made them outcasts among their own species. A communication alert interrupted her thoughts. The display showed an incoming message from Earth Command, something Sarah had been expecting but dreading. Admiral Harrison's face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. Captain Chen, we've received your reports about the situation on Cathera Prime. Earth Council has decided to recall you immediately. A transport ship is en route to your location. Sarah's heart sank. She had known this moment would come, but she wasn't prepared for how much it would hurt to leave the cubs behind. Admiral, respectfully, I need to remain here, Sarah replied. These cubs require continued guidance, and my presence helps maintain diplomatic relations with the Cathera. Captain, your mission was diplomatic contact, not adoption, Harrison said firmly. The cubs are safe now, and Pack Leader Sithrak has assured us they will be properly cared for. Your duty is to Earth. After the transmission ended, Sarah sat in silence while the cubs watched her with intelligent eyes that seemed to understand more than they should. You're leaving, Luna said. It wasn't a question. My people want me to come home, Sarah admitted, but I don't want to abandon you. Shadow approached and placed a small paw on Sarah's hand. We understand duty. Pack loyalty extends beyond personal desires. 2 days later, Sarah stood in the departure bay watching Earth's transport ship dock with the Cathara station. The cubs flanked her, dressed in formal clan colors that marked them as adopted members of Sithrak's mountain clan. Pack leader. Sithrak approached, his massive form moving with the careful grace of a politician who had survived decades of clan warfare. The cubs will be trained according to your recommendations, he assured Sarah. They will learn both Cathara traditions and human strategic thinking. Perhaps this combination will make them stronger than either species alone. Sarah nodded, trying to hide her emotional turmoil. They're special, Sithrak. Don't let anyone convince them they're broken or contaminated. They're evolved. As Sarah prepared to board the transport, Luna stepped forward. Sarah, Pack Leader, we have something for you. The cub handed Sarah a small device that looked like a combination of Cathera craftsmanship and human technology. We built this together. It will let us communicate across any distance. Sarah examined the device with amazement. The cubs had somehow integrated quantum communication principles with Cathera bio-neural interfaces. The engineering was beyond anything either species had achieved independently. How did you learn to build this? Sarah asked. Frost grinned, showing teeth that were beginning to develop into adult fangs. We watched you work on the armory systems. We learned human electronics. Then we applied Cathera biotechnology. The combination creates new possibilities. Sarah hugged each cub goodbye, fighting back tears as she realized how much they had all grown during their time together. They weren't the terrified children she had protected anymore. They were young warriors with hybrid skills that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The transport ship carried Sarah away from Cathera Prime, but her communication device remained active. Every day she received updates from the cubs about their training, their discoveries, and their gradual integration into Mountain Clan society. What she learned troubled her deeply. The cubs' unique abilities were attracting attention from other Cathera clans. Some wanted to study them, to understand how human influence had enhanced their natural capabilities. Others saw them as threats to traditional Cathera culture and wanted them eliminated. More concerning were reports that other alien species had heard about their hybrid cubs and were sending investigators to Cathera Prime. The galactic community was beginning to understand that the combination of human and Kythera characteristics created something entirely new. 6 months after leaving the Cubs, Sarah received an urgent message that changed everything. Sarah, pack leader, Luna's voice crackled through the quantum communicator. We need your help. Other Cubs are disappearing. Young Kythera from different clans are being taken by unknown ships. We think they're trying to create more like us through force. Sarah's blood ran cold. Someone was kidnapping Kythera Cubs to experiment on them, hoping to replicate the unique development that had occurred naturally through her relationship with Luna. Frost and Shadow. The clan leaders don't believe us, Frost added. They think we're imagining threats because we see patterns differently. But we've tracked 17 disappearances across 5 clans. Shadow's voice was grim as he continued the report. We tried to investigate alone, but we're still too young. We need an adult pack leader who thinks like we do. We need you to come back. Sarah stared at the communicator for a long moment, weighing her options. Earth Command would not approve of her returning to Kythera space without authorization. But somewhere in the galaxy, innocent Cubs were being subjected to horrific experiments because of the unique abilities she had helped develop. Pack leader Sithrak knows about the disappearances? Sarah asked. He believes us, but he cannot act without proof, Luna replied. The other clan leaders think the Mountain Clan is trying to gain political advantage by claiming special threats against Cubs. Sarah made her decision, with the same instinctive certainty that had led her to protect the Cubs in the first place. I'm coming back, she said. But this time we're not just defending ourselves. We're going hunting. The Cubs' excited howls echoed through the communicator, and Sarah realized she was about to embark on a mission that would either save dozens of innocent lives or start an interstellar war. Either way, she was going home to her pack. It wasn't the first time she had requisitioned equipment without proper authorization, but stealing a prototype stealth corvette from Earth's most secure naval facility was definitely a career-ending decision. The ship's advanced systems would allow her to reach Kythera space undetected, but using it meant she could never return to Earth military service. She didn't care. The Cubs were her pack now, and pack loyalty transcended everything else. The stolen corvette, which Sarah christened Pack Runner, arrived at Kythera Prime 3 weeks later. Instead of docking at the main spaceport, Sarah used the ship's stealth capabilities to land secretly in the mountains near Sithrak's stronghold. Luna, Frost, and Shadow were waiting for her at the predetermined coordinates. Sarah's heart swelled with pride as she saw how much they had grown. They moved with adult confidence now, their bodies stronger and their eyes holding the keen intelligence of experienced hunters. Sarah, pack leader, returns, Luna said formally, then broke into a grin that was purely adolescent. We have missed you greatly. I've missed you too, Sarah replied, surprised by how emotional she felt. Now tell me everything about these disappearances. The Cubs had been busy during her absence. They led Sarah to a hidden cave system where they had established a sophisticated intelligence operation. Maps covered the walls, tracking missing Cubs and correlating disappearance patterns with unusual ship sightings. 23 Cubs missing now, Frost reported with military precision, all between 8 and 12 years old. All taken from isolated locations during solo training exercises. Shadow added his analysis. The kidnappers know Kythera customs perfectly. They target Cubs during the independence trials when young ones are expected to be alone for several days. Sarah studied their data with growing admiration. The Cubs had conducted an investigation that would have impressed professional intelligence analysts. They had identified patterns, established timelines, and even developed theories about the kidnappers' motivations. We believe the Cubs are being taken to conduct experiments, Luna explained. Someone wants to recreate what happened to us. The combination of Kythera biology with human strategic thinking. But they don't understand that our development came from trust and partnership, Frost continued. They think they can force the same changes through trauma and conditioning. Sarah felt sick imagining what those captured Cubs might be enduring. Have you identified who's behind this? We have suspicions, Shadow said, activating a holographic display that showed star charts with marked shipping routes. 3 different alien species have increased their presence in this region since news of our abilities spread. The Zarion Empire, the Valdris Consortium, and the Krell Dominion. Each species had different motivations for wanting enhanced Kythera warriors. The Zarians sought military advantages in their ongoing territorial expansions. The Valdris wanted profitable weapons technologies they could sell to the highest bidder. The Krell simply enjoyed causing suffering to other species. We need to rescue the cubs and expose the kidnappers, Sarah decided. But we can't do it alone. We need allies. Pack leader Sithrak will help, Luna assured her. But the other clan leaders still doubt our evidence. They see us as outsiders making wild claims. Sarah smiled grimly. Then we'll have to provide proof they can't ignore. Over the next week, Sarah worked with the cubs to plan an operation that would have been impossible for either humans or Kithra alone. They combined Sarah's knowledge of space combat tactics with the cubs' enhanced tracking abilities and natural hunting instincts. The cubs had identified a pattern in the disappearances that suggested the next target would be a young male from the desert clan named Corin. He was scheduled to begin his independence trial in 3 days, alone in the wasteland region where several previous disappearances had occurred. We'll use Corin as bait, Sarah explained to Sithrak during a secret meeting in the mountain caves. But we'll be ready when the kidnappers come for him. Sithrak's expression was troubled. You're asking me to risk a cub's life on the theories of 3 young ones who think differently than normal Kithra. I'm asking you to trust us, Sarah replied. Just like you trusted us when we exposed Gorthak's corruption. The cubs had prepared for this conversation. Luna stepped forward with a datapad containing detailed analysis of all 23 disappearances. Pack leader Sithrak, examine the evidence without prejudice, she said formally. We have cross-referenced shipping schedules, analyzed communication intercepts, and identified the specific ships involved in these operations. Frost added his contribution. We have also determined the location where the cubs are being held, a mobile research facility that moves between systems to avoid detection. Shadow concluded their presentation. We know who is taking our people, where they are being held, and when the next attack will occur. All we need is your permission to act. Sithrak studied the data for several minutes, his expression growing darker as he absorbed the implications. This level of intelligence gathering, it's beyond what our best military analysts have achieved. Because we think differently, Luna explained. We see patterns that pure Kithera or pure human minds might miss. Finally, Sithrak nodded. Very well. We will proceed with your plan. But if young Corin is harmed, the responsibility falls on all of us. The operation began 2 days later when Corin entered the wasteland for his independence trial. He had been briefed on the situation and was equipped with hidden tracking devices and emergency communication equipment. More importantly, he was protected by an invisible network of watchers. Sarah used the pack runner's advanced sensors to monitor the area from orbit, while the cubs positioned themselves at strategic points around the trial zone. Sithrak's warriors were hidden nearby, ready to respond when the kidnappers revealed themselves. The attack came exactly as the cubs had predicted. A ship with falsified Valdris identification codes descended toward Corin's location, its occupants confident they were capturing an isolated and helpless target. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by an enemy that had been waiting for them. Sarah's corvette disabled the kidnapper ship's engines with precisely targeted shots while the cubs coordinated ground forces to prevent escape. Within minutes, the kidnappers were captured and their ship secured. The prisoners were a mixed group, 2 Valdris traders, a Zarian military officer, and a Krell scientist. Under interrogation, they revealed the location of the mobile research facility where the missing cubs were being held. 27 cubs imprisoned on that station, the Krell scientist admitted with disturbing enthusiasm. My experiments have produced fascinating results. The combination of trauma and conditioning does create enhanced abilities, though the subjects rarely survive the process. Sarah had to physically restrain Luna from attacking the scientist. The young Kithera's eyes blazed with murderous rage at the thought of cubs being tortured in the name of scientific curiosity. We're going to get them back, Sarah promised. All of them. The rescue mission would require everything Sarah and the cubs had learned about combining human technology with Kithera tactics. The research station was heavily defended and constantly moving, making it a target that conventional forces couldn't engage effectively. But Sarah wasn't planning a conventional assault. She was planning something that would demonstrate exactly what happened when humans and Kithera worked together as a unified pack. As Pack Runner prepared to depart Kithera Prime, Sarah realized that Luna, Frost, and Shadow were no longer the frightened cubs she had protected months earlier. They were warriors now, shaped by human strategic thinking and Cathera hunting instincts into something entirely new. The galaxy was about to learn what that combination could accomplish when, motivated by righteous fury and pack loyalty. The research station's scientific progress hung in the void between star systems, a massive structure designed to avoid detection by any planetary government. Its hull bristled with defensive weapons and sensor arrays that could detect approaching ships from several light hours away. Sarah studied the station through Packrunner's advanced reconnaissance systems while the Cubs analyzed the defensive patterns with predatory focus. What they saw was formidable. Energy shields, automated turrets, patrol fighters, and scanning systems that would make a direct assault nearly impossible. Conventional attack would require a full battle fleet, Frost observed, his tactical mind already calculating odds and variables. Good thing we're not conventional, Sarah replied with a grin that was becoming distinctly predatory. The Cubs had spent the 3-day journey developing strategies that combined human stealth technology with Cathera hunting principles. The result was a plan that no pure human or pure Cathera force would have conceived. Phase 1. We make them think we're something we're not, Luna explained, her paws dancing over the control interfaces. They had modified for her anatomy. Pack Runner began broadcasting false identification codes that identified it as a Valdris medical transport carrying rare biological specimens. The Cubs had programmed the signals using information extracted from their captured kidnappers, creating a digital disguise that would fool most scanning systems. Medical transport, healing hand requesting approach clearance. Sarah transmitted to the station. We have priority specimens for Dr. Krell 77. The response came quickly. Proceed to docking bay 4. Maintain current speed and trajectory. As Packrunner approached the massive station, Sarah marveled at how easily the Cubs had adapted to space combat operations. They monitored sensor readings, managed communications, and coordinated ship systems with the efficiency of veteran crew members. The station's docking bay was designed for much larger vessels, making Packrunner look insignificant among the various ships already secured there. Sarah counted 3 Valdris freighters, 2 Zarian military transports, and a Krell science vessel that probably served as the operation's mobile command center. 27 Cubs somewhere in this structure, Shadow murmured, his enhanced senses already probing for life signs that might indicate their location. Plus unknown number of researchers, guards and support personnel, Frost added. We need intelligence before we act. Sarah had anticipated this need. Hidden in Packrunner's cargo bay were surveillance drones no larger than insects, equipped with miniature cameras and sensors. The Cubs would deploy these scouts while Sarah handled the official inspection. A Krell security officer met them at the airlock, his reptilian features showing the casual arrogance of someone who believed himself completely safe. Dr. Krell 77 is eager to examine your specimens. This way. Sarah followed the guard through corridors lined with laboratories and holding cells. Through transparent walls, she could see equipment designed for biological experimentation and chambers that made her stomach clench with anger. The Cubs, meanwhile, had released their micro-drones and were gathering intelligence throughout the station. Their enhanced spatial awareness allowed them to coordinate the tiny robots with remarkable precision, building a 3-dimensional map of the entire facility. Cubs located, Luna whispered through their private communication link. Detention level 7. Heavy security, but we have identified access routes. Dr. Krell 77 turned out to be exactly as disgusting as Sarah had expected. The scientist's enthusiasm for his work was evident as he described experiments designed to enhance inferior species through controlled trauma stimulation. Your specimens will contribute greatly to our understanding, he told Sarah. We have made remarkable progress with the Cathera subjects. Several have survived the conditioning process and demonstrated enhanced capabilities. Sarah maintained her professional facade while mentally cataloging every detail of the laboratory for future targeting. How many subjects are currently active in the program? 15 remain viable, the doctor replied casually. The others provided valuable data through their failures. 12 Cubs had died in this monster's experiments. Sarah felt the same cold rage that had driven her to protect Luna, Frost, and Shadow months earlier. I'd like to observe the conditioning process, Sarah said, to better understand how my specimens should be prepared. The doctor's eyes gleamed with academic pride as he led Sarah deeper into the station. Behind them, invisible micro-drones followed and transmitted everything to the cubs waiting in Pack Runner. The conditioning chambers were worse than Sarah's worst fears. Young Kythera were restrained in devices that subjected them to psychological torture, while alien technology attempted to force rapid neural development. The cubs who survived looked broken, their natural confidence replaced by fearful submission. Sarah recognized several faces from the missing persons files the cubs had compiled. These children had been bright, curious young Kythera with their whole lives ahead of them. Now they cowered in cages, their spirits crushed by weeks of systematic abuse. Fascinating subjects, the doctor continued, oblivious to Sarah's growing fury. Their natural pack-bonding instincts make them surprisingly resistant to our methods. But we have developed techniques to overcome their psychological defenses. Sarah nodded and took notes, playing her role while memorizing every detail of the laboratory's layout and security systems. She was particularly interested in the power distribution network and the emergency lockdown procedures. The enhanced subjects show remarkable abilities, Dr. Krell-77 explained, gesturing toward a separate area where 3 older cubs were demonstrating combat skills under guard supervision. Improved reflexes, tactical thinking, and problem-solving capabilities that exceed baseline Kythera parameters. Those 3 cubs moved differently than the others. Their postures showed confidence despite their circumstances, and their eyes held the same analytical intelligence Sarah recognized in Luna, Frost, and Shadow. One of them, a female with distinctive white markings, looked directly at Sarah with an expression that suggested she understood more than her captors realized. Very impressive, Sarah agreed. When can I begin introducing my specimens to the program? Immediately, the doctor replied, though I should warn you that the mortality rate remains quite high. We estimate only 30% survival probability for new subjects. Sarah had heard enough. She activated a hidden signal that would alert the cubs to begin their assault, while she dealt with the immediate threats in the laboratory. Actually, Doctor, Sarah said conversationally, I think there's been a misunderstanding about who's going to be experimenting on whom. Her first shot disabled the laboratory's security cameras. Her second eliminated the guard stationed by the cubs' cages. The third and fourth shots destroyed the power coupling that controlled the restraint systems. Throughout the station, alarms began blaring as the cubs launched their coordinated attack. Pack Runner's weapons systems, slave to Luna's control, began systematically destroying the station's defensive turrets. Frost led a boarding action through maintenance shafts that the cubs' small size made accessible. Shadow coordinated the micro-drone swarm to disrupt communications and sensor networks. The enhanced cubs in the laboratory immediately understood what was happening. Free from their restraints, they moved with deadly efficiency to disable their remaining guards and liberate the other prisoners. The white-marked female approached Sarah with the confident stride of a natural leader. I am Zara of the Storm Clan. We have been waiting for rescue. I'm Sarah Chen, and we're getting you all out of here, Sarah replied while checking her weapon's power levels. Can your people fight? Zara's grin showed teeth that had been enhanced with metal implants, a modification that suggested the experiments had included physical augmentation. We have been planning our own escape. Your arrival provides the opportunity we needed. The rescued cubs organized themselves with remarkable speed, forming tactical groups that combined their enhanced abilities with natural Kythera pack instincts. They moved through the station like a coordinated hunting pack, systematically eliminating guards and researchers while securing evidence of the illegal experiments. Sarah found herself leading an army of enhanced cubs who fought with the skills of adult warriors and the ruthless efficiency of beings who had been pushed beyond their limits. They showed no mercy to their captors, and Sarah realized she was witnessing the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history. These cubs had been transformed by trauma and abuse, but unlike the cubs Sarah had raised, they were shaped by anger and the desire for vengeance. They were stronger and more capable than Luna, Frost, and Shadow, but they were also more dangerous. As the station's defenses crumbled under the assault, Sarah began to understand the true implications of what had been unleashed. The galaxy now contained dozens of enhanced Kythera cubs who possessed abilities that transcended anything either species had achieved alone. The question was whether they would use those abilities. to protect the innocent or to seek revenge against anyone they perceived as a threat. 6 months after the rescue mission, Sarah stood on the observation deck of Cathera Prime's newest facility, the Integration Center. Below her, dozens of enhanced cubs trained alongside Luna, Frost, and Shadow in exercises that combined traditional Cathera hunting techniques with advanced human tactical concepts. The rescued cubs had healed remarkably well from their trauma, but they remained fundamentally changed. Under Zara's leadership, they had formed their own pack structure that operated independently of traditional clan hierarchies. They called themselves the Star Pack, and their loyalty was to each other rather than to any planetary authority. "They're magnificent," pack leader Sithrak observed, joining Sarah at the viewing window. "But they make the other clan leaders nervous." Sarah understood his concern. The enhanced cubs possessed abilities that threatened the established order of Cathera society. They could outthink adult warriors, outfight trained soldiers, and coordinate operations with a precision that seemed almost telepathic. More concerning was their attitude toward other species. The cubs Sarah had raised showed curiosity and friendship toward non-Cathera beings. The rescued cubs viewed most aliens with suspicion and hostility, born from their traumatic experiences. "How many requests for access have you received this week?" Sarah asked. 47, Sithrak replied grimly. "The Galactic Council wants to study them. The Terran Federation wants to recruit them. 3 different mega-corporations have offered to purchase their services. Even the Zirian Empire is claiming they want to provide compensation for damages." Below them, Luna was demonstrating advanced piloting techniques to a group of younger cubs using a flight simulator that combined human engineering with Cathera biotechnology. Her movements were fluid and precise, showing none of the hesitation that marked normal adolescent development. "What does Zara say about these offers?" Sarah inquired. "She listens politely, then tells them the Star Pack will make its own decisions," Sithrak answered. "Yesterday she informed a Terran admiral that humans had lost the right to command Cathera loyalty when they allowed cubs to be tortured for scientific purposes." Sarah winced. The political implications of the enhanced cubs' existence were becoming more complex every day. Earth wanted to claim credit for their development while distancing itself from responsibility for their trauma. The Cathera clans wanted to integrate them while maintaining traditional power structures. Other species wanted to exploit them while pretending to offer protection. The cubs themselves had different ideas. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Sarah activated the communication panel to see Admiral Harrison's face, his expression more serious than she had ever seen it. "Captain Chen, we have a situation developing in the Kepler sector," he began without preamble. 3 Krell research stations have been completely destroyed in the past week. No survivors, minimal wreckage, and tactical patterns that suggest enhanced Cathera involvement. Sarah's heart sank. "Are you certain it was the cubs?" "Intelligence reports indicate ships using modified Cathera technology and human stealth systems," Harrison continued. "The attacks were coordinated across multiple star systems with precision that suggests enhanced tactical capabilities." Sithrak growled softly. "The Star Pack has been here continuously. We maintain constant surveillance of all enhanced cubs. Check your surveillance logs," Harrison advised, "because someone with their exact capabilities is conducting military operations against Krell facilities. The Galactic Council is demanding answers." After the transmission ended, Sarah and Sithrak hurried to the security center. The surveillance data showed all enhanced cubs accounted for during the time frame of the attacks, but Sarah noticed something troubling in the detailed logs. "There," she pointed to a section of data. 17 cubs are shown in training exercises, but the biometric readings are inconsistent. Sithrak examined the readings more carefully. "These are projection holograms. Someone created false images to mask their absence." Sarah felt a chill of realization. They didn't just learn our tactical thinking, they learned our deception techniques. A soft footstep announced Luna's arrival in the security center. The young Cathera's expression was carefully neutral as she observed the adults studying surveillance data. "You're wondering about the Krell stations," Luna said matter-of-factly. "Luna, please tell me the enhanced cubs weren't involved in those attacks," Sarah pleaded. "We were not involved," Luna replied with precise honesty. "The Star Pack operates independently of our guidance." Sarah caught the subtle distinction in her phrasing. But you know who was responsible? Luna was quiet for a moment, then activated a holographic display showing star charts and tactical analysis. Zara created a second group, cubs who were deemed too unstable for integration training. She calls them the Shadow Pack. The display showed the locations of the destroyed Krell facilities alongside shipping routes and communication intercepts. The tactical analysis was sophisticated beyond anything Sarah had expected from teenage beings. Zara is hunting the scientists and traders who operated the research stations, Luna continued. She has identified 17 individuals across multiple species who were directly involved in the cub experimentation program. Scythrak's voice was grim. How many has she eliminated? 5 Krell researchers, 2 Valdris traders, and 3 Zarian officers, Luna reported. The Shadow Pack has become very efficient at targeted assassination. Sarah stared at the data in horror. The enhanced cubs weren't just seeking justice for their trauma. They were conducting a systematic campaign of revenge that could destabilize interstellar relations. We have to stop them, Sarah decided. Stop them from doing what? Luna asked with an innocence that didn't reach her eyes. They are eliminating beings who tortured children for profit. By human standards, isn't this justice? By human standards, this is vigilante murder, Sarah replied firmly. And it's going to start a war. Luna tilted her head with an expression that reminded Sarah of the terrified cub she had first encountered. Pack leader Sarah, you taught us that protecting the innocent sometimes requires fighting those who would harm them. Zara learned this lesson very well. Over the following weeks, the Shadow Pack's campaign continued despite efforts by multiple governments to stop them. They struck with precision and vanished before security forces could respond. Their targets were always individuals connected to the illegal experimentation program, and they left behind evidence documenting their victims' crimes. The galactic community found itself in an unprecedented situation. The Shadow Pack was technically conducting illegal operations, but they were targeting individuals who had committed atrocities against children. Public opinion was divided between those who supported the cubs' quest for justice and those who feared the precedent of enhanced beings operating outside legal authority. Sarah realized that her decision to protect 3 terrified cubs had inadvertently created something that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The enhanced cubs represented a new form of life that combined the best qualities of 2 species, while transcending the limitations of both. Luna, Frost and Shadow had become bridges between worlds, helping other species understand the potential for cooperation and mutual benefit. The Star Pack represented controlled power, disciplined enhancement guided by wisdom and compassion. But the Shadow Pack embodied something darker, the potential for enhanced beings to become judge, jury, and executioner when they believed justice was not being served through conventional means. As Sarah watched Luna coordinate training exercises that prepared young cubs for a future none of them could fully envision, she understood that humanity had gained something precious and terrifying. They had learned to create beings superior to themselves in every measurable way. The question was whether those beings would choose to be protectors or predators. Standing in the integration center, surrounded by the sounds of cubs learning to blend human technology with Cathera instincts, Sarah realized that the galaxy would never be the same. The age of pure species dominance was ending, replaced by something hybrid and unprecedented. She had given the Kithera 3 cubs and taught them to think like humans. Now they were returning to the star's leading packs of enhanced beings whose loyalty transcended species boundaries, and whose capabilities redefined what was possible. The hunting pack she had helped create was just beginning to show the galaxy what they could accomplish when motivated by justice, tempered by wisdom, and guided by the unbreakable bonds of pack loyalty that extended across the stars. The future belonged to those who could adapt, learn, and evolve beyond the limitations of their origins. Sarah smiled as she watched Luna demonstrate a tactical maneuver that combined Cathera grace with human innovation, knowing that she had helped birth that future. The cubs had come home leading more than just a hunting pack. They were leading a revolution.